He's right here. John 1:48, Nathanael said to him, "How do you know me?" Jesus answered and said to him, "Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Sometimes when people read that, they say, first miracle. Except for the fact that in chapter 2, the first sign was turning the water to wine. Nathanael recognized in Christ something special. Back in John 1:41, it said, "We have found the Messiah." Keep in mind, the first miracle or the first sign does not occur till chapter 2. What was so special about Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph? Romans 1:20. "For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse." From the beginning, God has shown himself to us through what has been made. That's an interesting one to think about when you start to think about what they heard about gods at that time. When you heard the stories about Hercules, it really was a story about Hercules. If Hercules was going to kill Medusa, the story was all about Hercules and how Hercules killed Medusa. Pick your God. If it was going to be a story about that God, then the whole story was about that God. Adam and Eve. We got a big story about Adam and Eve and the fall. And after the fall, God comes into the garden. We've got the story of Cain and Abel. And we know what Cain did and what Abel did. Abel offered the more worthy sacrifice, and Cain kills Abel. We've got the story of Noah. We know how he builds that ark with his sons, and how all the animals come into the ark, and how they're saved. We know all these stories from the Old Testament, and this is just Genesis that I have up here right now. So Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Esau, Jacob, Leah and Rachel, Laban, the 12 sons and daughter Diana, Joseph, the 7 years of plenty, the 7 years of famine. We're just in Genesis. All those stories, all that accounting of what took place, God showed himself for who he is. Not because God had to take center stage, right up front, here I am, here I am, here I am. He showed himself through those he had created. He showed himself not because he had to force his presence, but because his presence was needed. When Adam and Eve sinned, they needed forgiveness. They needed God in a way they weren't going to be comfortable with right off the bat, because he comes right in on them and they know they're exposed for all that they truly are. Cain and Abel. God lets Cain know, listen, if you do what's right, you'll be accepted. Sin desires to master you. You need to choose to do different. God isn't the forceful gods that they heard about all that time. He was a loving, supporting God, who is providing opportunity, who is providing guidance. So when Nathanael encounters Jesus as the Messiah, for starters, Jesus is probably about the 50th Messiah he's heard of at this time. There were a lot of people who knew and could count. 400 years. Okay, 400 years is come and gone. It's now. God's going to return. So they were looking for that return. And how did that return come? For a lot of people, it was, well, the right return is God's going to take out Rome. So we're looking for the guy that comes down and says, come follow me, because I am the one who's going to make a difference. I am the one who will lead you. I am the one making the story all about me. Well, that's a Hercules kind of answer. They knew what they found because the Messiah came in a similar manner to the way God presented himself throughout the Old Testament. Jesus didn't come saying, come look at me. When John points him out and says, behold the Lamb of God, John's followers don't immediately turn and follow Jesus, because the one they've learned to trust in was John. He has to tell them a couple times, boom, behold the Lamb of God. And then a couple of them go and follow. And after following, they realize, yeah, this guy is not like the other messiahs who've been coming out of the woodwork, who've been declaring, oh, I am so he. Instead, this guy is a lot like John. He's pointing out God's truths, God's way from God's own word. He's not appealing to some other authority, some other teacher, as though that other teacher gives him credibility. When he says, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, spirit, strength, I always get them in the wrong order. He's letting them know it's about God, not about me. Being right here too oftentimes means right up here. Because if you think about it, Nathanael declares Jesus to be the Son of God. He recognizes in him at that moment something different than what he's seeing everywhere else. He recognizes the fulfillment of what was told in the Old Testament. He's got the head knowledge. You're the Son of God. Having him right here is not the same as having him right here. This is understanding. This is conviction. Can think of a real easy, nasty one on that point. The demons know who he is. Didn't mean they changed. They could know Christ was the Son of God. We're called to make choices. It begins right up here. It begins when you understand there is a God We can all think of some places we'd really rather not be, though. And a lower amount of income is not so scary when you're thinking about the loss of a loved one. God isn't asking more of us than he asked of his own Son. And the truth of it is, for most of us, we're not going to be asked to step up to the plate in the same way that his Son did. But we are being asked to step up to that plate. We are being called to make this into this in a meaningful way. We're called to make the decision to make it more than a passive Christianity. To make it an active decision. And sometimes those decisions mean something's not convenient. I don't think death on the cross was convenience. We're called to choose for God in a way that reflects his love towards others. Yes, it will have a real cost. But God has told us he's not going to take us through something more than we can bear. And I'm telling you right now, better to take the gamble with what you can see than with what you can't. I'm not saying that in negative, though, because I'm thankful for all we went through. And I wouldn't trade it on another. We serve a great God. But the truth is, we're called to serve that God. We're not successfully serving when we stuff it in our pocket and just walk on by. Jesus didn't walk away from the cross. He accepted the path, walked straight towards it, knowing what was coming. Sometimes it's a gamble for us. I pray that each one of us has the strength, the courage, and the willingness to take it from here to here. If you have needs of the prayers of the church, or if you need to take on Christ in baptism, you're more than welcome to come as we stand and sing.